Hello and welcome to tonight's Big Rican on Sports 2021 NFL Draft Wrap-Up. I am your host, I am the Big Rican. Today it's Thursday, May the 6th, 2021. And as you can see, I am not alone. Alex from row 7 here. And Alex, I figured having you on here tonight, where I was trying to get Tones, but he's doing Buccateers. We did the draft together. We might as well do the recap together. So it was an interesting couple hours. Just to hit some highlights. For everybody out there who didn't know what was going on today, this is a double dip for Alex and I, as I did row 7 with him and his brother just before this. But I said my second favorite moment from the draft was when it was announced at pick number 11 that the Chicago Bears had taken Justin Fields from the Ohio State University, the dynamic dual-threat quarterback to be the future of the Chicago Bears. My second favorite moment was you getting up and going to hug your wife, as you said, because they finally did something right. The moment that has actually had people reach out to me was the 5th pick in the draft. Was Cincinnati.
I was hoping that you were going to bring that up because, God, they couldn't help themselves. They just couldn't.
But it's not that it wasn't our take on the pick, because remember, we went after them and then we said, okay, well, Jamar Chase, he's got a lot of good points too. It was the fact that the first words out of my mouth were Joe Burrow is dead. And then Tone, us not knowing that he's got the draft and our show picture in picture, comes back and goes, what the hell was that? I had my buddy in Cleveland, one of them reached out to me and he goes, you guys were hilarious. That and the Don Johnson wannabe comment really got him going. So let me ask you your overall impression of the 2021 NFL draft. There were some surprises. Mm-hmm. The run on wide receivers when there were better fits we felt for those teams there. Outside of Jamar Chase and Justin Fields for that matter, what was your biggest surprise of the 2021 NFL draft?
I think you attested to it that the Cincinnati Bengals did not protect their quarterback after coming off of a year where he just tore his ACL and every other ligament in his knee. I mean, that one just stands out to me, and I'm not indicting the Cincinnati Bengals by any means because I have no affiliation, no fandom towards him, no hatred towards him in any sort. But the fact that he's this man, Penny Sewell, the man who's basically a proverbial wall, who will block and protect Joe Burrow, and you said, no, we're going to give him more weapons, was just, what?
Yeah, and that was the mind-blow moment of the night. Now, Cincinnati did take an offensive guard in the second round. I'm looking it up, which is why I see my head down. They did take Jackson Carman out of Clemson in the second round. But yeah, the first round offensive tackle was the way to go. And even in the second round, they got clipped a little bit because Miami, another team that took a wide receiver, first of all, they took Jalen Waddle, which blew mine and yours and Tone's mind out of the water because Tua does have a ton of injury issues. Miami at least got smart and took Eichenberg in the second round.
Right.
To play offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. Listen, the Notre Dame tackles the last few years have been spot on. Mm-hmm. They play great. So obviously you were surprised the Bears did right by Justin Fields by drafting offensive line after that. When they got
they took Tevin Jenkins in the second round.
That was the pick I want to ask you about. Because I remember you and I were talking a little bit on Friday, text messaging. Mm-hmm. Were you more excited they went O-line in the second round, or were you more excited they were using their heads in the second round?
Just the fact that they took their heads out of their rear ends. You know, you went big, and your splash was round one, no doubt. I'm still drunk from it, so there's that. But knowing that going forward, you're obviously not going to invest in Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. But if you get this guy, Tevin Jenkins, who is another wall out of Oklahoma State, to protect your future asset in Justin Fields, just said, wow, that's a one nice 1-2 punch right there. I was that got the definite round of applause for me. So just knowing that they didn't select a tight end like they've been known to do for the past handful of years, or trade up or trade down for another stupid pick, was commendable for me.
Okay, then. Stupid pick. I get you. So obviously the Bears had a great draft. What would you give them as a letter grade?
I'm going to probably give them a solid A-. I think because also I want to say it was in the third round. They drafted another offensive tackle, I believe it was.
I think it was the fourth because I'm looking at the third round now and I don't see that C on here.
Okay, so maybe I think they had to give up the third, right?
Yeah, the third was part of the deal to move up to get Justin Fields. Let's see, Chicago.
So, yeah, Fields first, Tevin Jenkins second. Fifth round, they got Larry Borum, offensive tackle out of Mizzou. So another big boy.
Yeah, those offensive tackles from the Midwest, they're big dudes. Speaking of round 5, I don't know if you saw this, but Jacksonville took a tight end with the first pick of the 5th round.
Did they really?
Luke Farrell from Perry, Ohio, out of Ohio State. Do you want to know what's so cool about that? Urban Meyer recruited him to Columbus.
Huh.
There is video of Urban Meyer making the call to Luke Farrell.
Interesting.
Very nice. I got to tell you, and again, it's an Ohio State guy, so obviously it's a lot of ties to my heart. Farrell had a huge game against Clemson in the playoff to get Ohio State to the national, and had a huge catch in the championship game. But Urban gets on the phone. He goes, Perry, Ohio. And Farrell goes, hey, coach, how are you? He goes, well, I got some news for you. We're taking you. And the kid couldn't believe it. And he goes, hang on. He goes, let me get my parents. And he puts his mom on the phone. The mother's crying. The father said, holy shit. And it was great. And I love stories like that, especially with, bringing guys that into your franchise. So speaking of bringing guys they know into the franchise, what was your opinion of Jacksonville trading back into the first round to take Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence's running mate, to play down in Jacksonville? Now, here's the thing. Urban Meyer feels that he can be a Percy Harvin type player. Do you know a lot about Etienne, or is this just what you've seen in the highlights? And what do you think of Urban's thoughts?
I do like the pick, but where does that leave? Because they also picked up Hyde in free agency, right? So where does that leave James Robinson?
See, here's the thing, though, because if he's going to use Etienne like Percy Harvin, picture a Kareem Hunt type role that the Browns have, where they're going to have their back. I love Carlos Hyde, but I don't think he's the feature back type anymore. So Robinson should be the feature back. But when you add a punch like Etienne, I mean, look at what Carlos Hyde. Look at what I just said his name. Look at what Kareem Hunt did in the playoffs against Pittsburgh. Catching passes, he ran in 2 scores. What he did all through the season. He was that outlet back, get a few carries here and there. He didn't have a lot of carries. Chubb was the workhorse. But Etienne is quick. He's good on the outside. He's good in open space. And Lawrence and Etienne basically ran this for 3 years. So it's something you can build on. So I understand what you're saying, where it leaves Robinson. I think Robinson will be the feature back.
Okay.
I think when Trevor Lawrence turns around to hand the ball off, it will be Robinson that gets the ball.
Okay.
But
I really didn't think of that dynamic. But, I mean, if you're going to use Etienne as like a pass catching back, kind of, be a little more of a, I guess, in a slot type of role in a sense.
Yeah.
Flex slot, I guess you can say, then it does make sense.
Yeah, I like him there. I thought Etienne was going to be a gimmick back's the wrong word, because he's better than that, but he's not an in between the tackles type guy. But I like him there with Lawrence, and basically now you're giving your number 1 overall pick a little bit of a security blanket.
Right.
Yeah, Jacksonville, top of round 2, they took Tyson Campbell, the defensive back out of Georgia. This, to me, is where the draft got funny. And I was watching the Mets on Friday night.
Of course you were.
Duh. The night they got in the fight in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I remember Zachary was sitting here like he was when we did the thing Thursday. And I flip my phone to ESPN. And then I flip my television to ESPN. Because the steal of the draft happened in round 2. JOK
Ah,
to the Cleveland Browns.
he did text me about that.
52.
For him to drop that far was
Now, it turned out he had a heart issue at one of his physicals.
okay.
But he has been cleared to play. So now in the draft, and I just want to go over this with you, the Browns added Greg Newsome from Northwestern. Exactly. I didn't know he gave up 0 completions on third down and fourth down last year.
That's why when I told you you got a good one, I meant you got a good one.
I agree with you. Now, here's the really scary part. Greedy's not going to start.
Really?
Your 2 outside corners are going to be Newsome and Denzel Ward with Greedy in the slot.
I think I'm pretty convinced that your boys are going to give up 0 points this season.
I wouldn't go that far. Because the 17th game they added was Arizona.
Just being hopeful, you know?
Listen. Now, here's something that came out of this. So they get Newsome in the first round. They get JOK in the second round. In round 3, they take a wide receiver from Auburn by the name of Anthony Schwartz, who scarily ran a faster 40 in his pro day than Tyreek Hill did.
Whew.
Dude can fly. Legit fly. So now the Browns have taken a corner. They've taken the best linebacker in the draft. And now they've taken somebody who can take the top off the defense. And then to add insult to injury, they took Tommy Togiai from Ohio State later in the draft, the defensive tackle, who set the record for most reps at the pro day on the bench press.
Yeah, just pushing weight.
I didn't know what I was watching. This is the Cleveland Browns. Their best GM before Andrew Berry was Kevin Costner.
Lost for words, man.
I mean, they take Anthony Schwartz in that round. They get Togiai later in the draft. They took another guy. Hold on. Who was the other one? I got to look this up because I'm at a loss because they just added everywhere they go. So they get James Hudson, who's an offensive tackle. So they get depth on the offensive line. They get Tommy Togiai. Now, Hudson is the guy I was telling you about from Cleveland Central Catholic, who went to Cincinnati. So now you add depth on the offensive line, which you had issues with due to COVID last year. You get Togiai at 132. You get safety Richard LeCount at 169 and Dominic Felton from UCLA, the running back, at 211. That's a heck of a draft. I mean, that's a heck of a draft.
No, I would absolutely agree. And that's why, as you mentioned on my show a little while ago, when you gave them I had absolutely no rebuttal for you because it made perfect sense.
I mean, you add JOK to a linebacking core with Jacob Phillips and Sione Takitaki, who had great years last year. Now pieces like Carl Joseph and Ronnie Harrison are coming off the bench. They're now depth pieces who had to start last year because of injury. All right, so I'm looking at the Bears picks. So I want to run through them, obviously. Justin Fields at number 11. Tevin Jenkins at number 39. 151, Larry Borum, like you had mentioned, the offensive tackle out of Mizzou. Khalil Herbert, the running back out of Va Tech. That's a nice depth piece for you guys.
It is.
He's another it's not an area of need with David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen and those guys, but he's a nice depth piece if somebody goes down. Stick him on the practice squad. Let him impersonate whoever's number one running back for your scout team, and he's going to be a great addition.
Not to mention that they also signed Damian Williams this offseason as well, too. So another running back to that core.
The They added defensive tackle from BYU, Karis Tonga. Those boys from BYU, they can play, and they're sneaky good. Just ask the Jets. All right. Now I got to get back into the top of the draft.
I was going to ask you if you could possibly, because I knew you had you mentioned it very briefly on my show just a little bit ago. Can you delve into a little bit of pick number 24?
Pick number 24.
Yeah. 24, first round.
Now I'm worried that I'm not understanding who it is. Give me a second.
It's from your second favorite team.
Oh, is this Quiddy Pay? 24.
You found it, huh?
Who's going to block for him?
They got a personal problem right now, as far as I'm concerned. I just wanted to get your blood boiling for a little bit. That's all.
With the exception of Derrick Henry, when is the last time Bama had a good running back come out and contribute? Ingram has been a bust. Trent Richardson was the second biggest bust this side of Ryan Leaf.
Wow. And there it is.
The only thing T. Rich didn't do was get arrested.
Oh, boy. Wow. Shots fired.
But they robbed the Colts blind.
Touche.
How are we going to get traded for a first-round pick and then cut?
Good question.
No disrespect to Najee Harris, who's a very talented running back. This ain't Bama's offensive line blocking for you. You are now running in a division where there are all pros all over defensive lines in Baltimore and in Cleveland.
Not to mention, I just read the headline yesterday or the day before. Didn't they lose Alejandro Villanueva?
To the Ravens.
Oh, perfect. Division rival.
And the first thing Villanueva did was take shots at Juju, which I thought was great.
Really? I didn't hear that.
He said he prefers a run-first team because all wide receivers do is put videos up for their TikToks.
Oh, man. That is a shot. Whew.
That was wonderful. Oh, your boy McAfee had a field day with it.
Oh, I could imagine. So,
who else did this? Let's dive into the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Who have the poster child for the Me Too movement and Ben Roethlisberger under center. If you couldn't tell, I really don't like that dude.
No, I mean, rightfully so.
Although, hey, we got something right from our mock draft. They took Pat Freiermuth in the second round.
Did they really?
They did, and we had him mocked in the first round because we didn't think there was any real quick fix for Pittsburgh in the first round. Najee Harris is not the quick fix. Who else did they take? Let's see.
I'm looking right now. Third round, they took Kendrick Green, a guard from Illinois. Look at that.
All right, so you get a Big Ten offensive guard, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so you get a Big Ten offensive lineman. Always a good thing to do, but you get maybe the 50th lineman not 50th. I'm sorry, 15th or 20th lineman in the draft. When you had Eichenberg sitting there, because Eichenberg went round 2,
mm-hmm.
and Najee Harris would have been there in round 2. Because if you look at everybody behind the Steelers in round 1, so they went at 24, 25. I don't think Jacksonville trades back into the first round to take Najee Harris.
Probably not.
26, the Browns are not taking a running back.
No. Don't need one.
27, Baltimore's not taking a running back, although I like the Bateman pick.
That was nice.
Let's see.
Houston needs everything, so defensive end.
Well, no, it's not Houston. That was New Orleans.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at his school. Sorry.
New Orleans needs everything. So, yeah, I don't think they were going to go offensive because they got Kamara. They weren't taking a running back.
Right.
Green Bay. All knew Green Bay was going to screw the pooch. Buffalo wasn't going to take a running back. Baltimore had another pick in the first round. They weren't taking a running back. And what are the Buccaneers weren't taking? They just signed Gio Bernard and kept Leonard Fournette. They weren't taking a running back.
They've kept bravo to the Bucks for being able to
Agreed.
figure it out to keep everybody. You brought the band back.
I think it's wonderful that they did that. And the only problem is the Browns got so much better.
Are you calling? You doing the way too early prediction? Browns? No. Okay.
I may be wearing the colors outside of the row 7 shirt.
Okay.
But I am not doing that.
Okay.
Because remember, the team that picked at 31 was not the Super Bowl runner-up. They went out and got everybody to play offensive line. They brought a dude out of retirement. They made a huge trade. I'm pretty sure they drafted offensive line later in the draft. So Kansas City is still the favorite. You got to beat the man to be the man. So Kansas City is still my favorite, as is Tampa. But if you ask me who's nipping on their heels, the Browns are right on their heels. The de facto, we talked about this before, the de facto AFC Championship game was that divisional round game between the Browns and the Chiefs, because we both know both teams were going to smoke Buffalo.
Right.
So I want to dive back into Cincinnati real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I know you were on Twitter before the pick was announced, before I lost my mind. And then, by the way, in round 3, they took an edge rusher. You and I have been fans of teams that have not made big or good decisions in the drafts. Whether it's my 2 teams I've rooted for in my life, in the Browns and the Jets, your Bears. What is it going to take for Cincinnati to realize they have now just possibly hampered their franchise for the next 2 or 3 years? Because I'm going to put it to you this way. Baltimore's secondary is stacked. Pittsburgh has a phenomenal pass rush and a good second level. Cleveland just retooled their entire defense. And by the way, you now have to run from Myles Garrett on one side and Jadeveon Clowney on the other. And it's also not out of the realm of possibility that Sheldon Richardson takes a pay cut and comes back.
I mean, it's essentially the proverbial nail in the coffin. I mean, at this point, you just hope that you can keep Joe Burrow upright this season and he doesn't blow out the other knee, because they're going to need a lot of prayers, a lot of help.
I just don't understand it, though. What do you think is going through the minds of NFL GMs when they have that decision in front of them? Because here's the thing. They asked Joe Burrow what he thought of getting Jamar Chase, and he loved it because that's his boy. They set records at LSU. But at what point in time do you take that decision out of the quarterback's hands? Because the quarterbacks don't want more dudes to throw the ball to. That's just who they are. When do you take that decision out of the quarterback's hands? Because I bet you Baker wanted a wide receiver in the first round.
Of course, but when you've sustained a significant long-term injury that could hamper your career, could shorten your career or end a career, I think that's when you have to basically say, we appreciate your input, but we need to do this to protect you.
Here's one for you. Do you think Cincinnati ever turns this around?
Not in the foreseeable future.
No, me neither. And here's the scary part. I don't like crowning people as franchise quarterbacks after the first season. I don't. I didn't crown Baker because we didn't know what he was going to be going ahead. I've done it now. Baker is the franchise quarterback for the Browns. But I broke my rule. Joe Burrow is the franchise quarterback for Cincinnati.
He is.
And listen, I love him.
I really want him to succeed. I don't have any hatred towards him.
I would love for him to go 14-2 every year, and his 2 losses are to the Cleveland Browns.
There you go. Can't ask for much.
It's kind of like LeBron. He can go 80-2 as long as those 2 losses are to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I don't know. I mean, it was just a bad call on their behalf, and now they're going to suffer the consequences. And I feel sorry for their fans, because they have to openly admit that they know that, yeah, they got a fantastic wide receiver, but we've seen the proof that when your quarterback does not have protection, they're not going to be able to make those passes regardless. You've seen it in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You've seen it over and over and over again. And it's the recipe for disaster when you lose an offensive lineman or several offensive linemen. So for them not to bolster, why?
No, I agree with you. The other thing I wanted to ask you, because we spent some time on the Browns, we did a little bit with your Bears. What do you think flipped the switch in Chicago? Because I remember you and I talking about this. And I was just wanting to light you up and get you going because you had it.
Yeah, I mean,
what changed?
I mean, the fact that the entire city of Chicago was looking to basically put a firing squad on Nagy and Pace. I think that's it. And you already have people going off the deep end, similar to like myself, where just like I'm renouncing my fandom, no more season tickets, not buying any more gear, not supporting the franchise, don't care about the draft. I think when you go that far, and regardless, if it's a small podcast like you and I have and operate, they're hearing the chatter. They know exactly how fans feel, and when you're at wit's end and you've reached that point, that pinnacle of frustration, you got to do something right. And I'm glad that they finally did, because it all it takes is just one or two simple moves that can just right the ship and point your organization in the right direction or get it trending in the right direction.
I agree. And I got to tell you, if it's the fans that did this, bravo, hats off to you Bears fans, because the Chicago Bears is a proud franchise.
Absolutely.
They're a proud franchise with a championship tradition, maybe the most iconic Super Bowl team of all time. And they're so good as a franchise that Rex Grossman took them to a Super Bowl.
Listen, this is a blue-collar city. We just want to win. I wasn't around in 85. Yes, I can go back and look at videos, and I have throwback jerseys from some of those guys back in the day, but that doesn't resonate with me anymore. I need something 2021 and beyond, and beyond. That's what I need. I want some sustained success from here going forward, just like you want with your boys, because you've gone through it. You've seen it. You've had a laundry list of terrible quarterbacks, and now you finally got one, and now you got a squad around them that's ready to compete and potential contenders for years to come. That's what you want.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I will say this. The only jersey I would want from that Bears team is William Perry.
Okay.
I want the fridge. I still think it was disrespectful that they didn't let Walter Payton score a touchdown in that Super Bowl, but that's just me. So here's another team I think had a pretty good draft that no one's talking about, and it's gone very quietly. And that's Atlanta.
Took arguably the best athlete, I would say.
Yeah, when we did our mock draft with Frank, I had said that I felt he was going to be the first pass catcher off the board. He's a hybrid, and the comparison I made when we were on with Tone was if Gronk is Arnold in the Terminator, this guy's Robert Patrick. He's the T-1000 because he has more speed and he can still run dudes over. Now, the problem is he can't block to save his life. So you have to split him out. He essentially becomes a wide receiver. Now, in round 2,
they took Richie Grant,
the safety out of UCF. UCF's always had a good secondary, and their players have translated well to the NFL.
I think their third-round pick was as much of as an indictment it is to you because when you have to read that name of the school he went to.
Yeah, the kid from up there, Jalen Mayfield. And he's an offensive tackle. Tackles from the Big Ten translate a la Joe Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
So Orlando Pace. So I'm losing the hat. It's toasty in here. So I like Mayfield. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Where he went to school does not take away from his prospect status, does not take away from his talent, it takes away from his decision making. Sorry, you know how I am.
No, I know. I get it. You have an allegiance that you will wear till the day that you're gone.
It's blood hate is what it is. Off topic, I find it funny that the Baltimore Ravens took a guy with the last name Cleveland in the draft.
They did. That was.
I found that funny and a slap in the face all at the same time. Who did they take in round 4? The Falcons, or did they not have it?
They
took
got
Drew Dalman, the center out of Stanford.
Center. Yep.
Looks like they're trying to build around Matty Ice.
I mean, you got who else do they have as the backup? I think I asked that on your podcast. I probably need to look that up because I don't know their depth chart.
Atlanta Falcons, let's see. And they signed Juwan Green.
Let's see.
AJ
McCarron. How about that? Yeah, drop your phone.
Let's go back to Alabama. Like I said, outside of Ken Stabler, Joe Namath, and Richard Todd, they've been nothing but glorified backups for the last 50 years. Speaking of Alabama, Mac Jones at 15 to the New England Patriots. Other than the stuff with San Francisco, maybe the worst kept secret in the NFL, that if he did not go in the top few, he was going to fall to Bill Belichick and now become the heir apparent to Cam Newton. Still funny to say.
Yeah.
And I didn't call him scam. How much money do you think he honestly took from Auburn?
A substantial amount.
Yeah, we're talking a Hummer and something else to be purchased.
Good chance.
But he won him a natty.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mac Jones with Bill Belichick. What a lot of people don't know is Nick Saban was on Bill Belichick's staff in Cleveland when he was the head coach of the Browns. They're all part of that Parcells coaching tree.
Mm-hmm.
Here's something else people don't remember. Nick Saban used to be the defensive coordinator at Ohio State once upon a time, too.
Really? I did not know that.
I'm pretty sure he was there under John Cooper before he went to Michigan State. Will Mac Jones, never mind his draft stock, never mind anything else, when you have the team he had at Alabama, you better have a year like that. But the question I have for you is, will he translate and will he play day one? Or is he going to sit a year and Cam Newton's going to play?
He will play year one, but I think they're going to give Cam the fair shot in year 2 with New England. And if he fails, probably, and not to say that he will, but I mean, by all accords, he might. I would say, like I've given the previous quarterbacks in Chicago, 3 to 4 games max, and then he will probably take a seat.
So basically, you'd give Cam the first quarter of the season.
Roughly. Unless he's bad out the gate, like game 1, then they might hand the ball over to him in game 2. But I think you'd probably give Cam at least 3 to 4 games and kind of see if you can maybe go 2-2, if not, 3-1. But I don't know.
So then let's break down the AFC East a little bit. I just got to adjust the cushion on the chair here. The scary part is the New York Jets had a phenomenal draft.
I was looking at theirs and I was hoping that you were going to bring them up.
Usually I wouldn't.
Right.
But the Jets blew my mind. We knew Zach Wilson was going number 2 overall. For them to then take their second pick and take Elijah Vera Tucker,
that was huge,
guard out of USC. That's huge because Becton was very, very good last year.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had, who did they have in round 2?
Elijah Moore,
the dynamic wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they picked an offensive weapon for Sam Darnold. Wrap your head around that one.
He was set up to fail.
Joe Douglas wasn't his GM.
Fair point.
They take Elijah Moore in round 2 at pick 34.
No one in round 3. I remember that. Then they took running back, I want to say 4.
Let's see. Michael Carter out of North Carolina. Again, dynamic running back, especially since they're big free agents now in Kansas City. Lev Bell.
Oh, yes. Forgot about that.
5, did they have a pick?
Uh,
5. Yes, they took Jamie and Sherwood, a safety out of Auburn. Again, a need that they filled.
mhm.
Will he play? Don't know. But a need that they filled. So the Jets actually did things according to what they needed. So you have the Jets team with Zach Wilson taking over day one. You have the Buffalo Bills coming off a spot in the AFC Championship game with not Jared Allen, Josh Allen.
Yep. And Mitch Trubisky is a backup.
Mitchell.
Yeah. You know what? It would be an absolute indictment if, for whatever reason, heaven forbid, that something happened to Allen and Trubisky had to go in and he played substantially well.
A backup coming in playing substantially well when he's not planned for is how Tua almost won a Heisman. A backup playing well when he's not planned for is not an indictment on anyone, but the other team not making plays, a la Chad Henne in the AFC divisional round last year.
Okay.
Him turning into the next Ryan Tannehill somewhere, there's your indictment. Because Adam Gase will never coach again in the NFL.
Oh God, please no. Remember that press conference he did where he was just on acid or something?
He's the second creepiest dude to ever play in the NFL.
He was just
Joe Namath being the creepiest.
He's out there.
He does the Medicare commercials that come on in my house, and I laugh every single time.
I've seen him too.
He's sober. That's good. So
always sell shots.
I'm on fire tonight.
You are. You are on fire.
And then we get to Miami, who takes Jalen Waddle in round 1. They take Eichenberg, the offensive tackle from Notre Dame, in round 2. Is this anybody's division, or is this still the Bills to win?
I gotta say, it's still the Bills to win by my standards. But I mean, I think we've talked about this before, and I've kind of always been on the fence about it. But I'm just not entirely sold with Tua as their quarterback.
I'm not sold on Tua either. And let me go a little deeper in what Frank and I were talking about quick when we did the mock draft. Frank and I did a mock draft the night after the national championship game when when Clemson beat Bama. In Trevor Lawrence's freshman year. And the only part that got any kind of heated was when we were discussing Tua. And I brought up a couple of things that just, it can't be argued. He looks at different things in film. I look at the numbers. And the stat I brought up was this. Of the 3 guys in the Heisman that year, the 3 finalists were Tua. What's his name that won it? Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State. Here is what I did. I went back and watched the teams that they played against. In 14 games, Kyler Murray played 2 top 25 defenses in 3 games. Texas twice, the Red River, and then the Big 12 championship, and TCU. He was good. He wasn't great. Maybe 60% completion, more touchdowns than picks. His rushing yards were down, and his average yards per game were down. Tua played 2 top 25 defenses. He threw as many picks as interceptions. His quarterback or his completion percentage was down 20% from games against other teams, and he threw for 175 less yards. Dwayne Haskins played 7 of the top 25. 8 if you go to 35, and they had Northwestern that year in the Big Ten championship. Haskins completed 72% of his passes. He threw 19 touchdowns, 1 interception. and he averaged 337 yards through the air against competition that could suit up and play with them. This was my whole point. Everybody can suit up and play with you at the next level. Tua did not show me anything last year.
I mean,
and now there's film on him.
It's also a testament to kind of show that, yeah, they were willing. They put him in a couple of games, but they inevitably went back to Fitzmagic, and now you don't have him there no more. So good luck.
And now he's in Washington.
Yep.
With a team that almost beat the Bucs. Who was their quarterback?
Well, they had Alex Smith, and
he
then
hurt.
Yeah, and then that kid who came in and played that game. I forgot his name.
Exactly.
And he didn't play bad either.
No, he didn't. Now you have Fitzmagic. You have Terry McLaurin. You have Curtis Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
And you have that defense. And Dave Gettleman traded out of the first round.
Mm-hmm. I was a believer in Washington last year, but I think I'm a little even more of a believer now because everybody thinks this, it's Cowboys, and then it's just a handful of Eagles. I'll sleep on Washington.
No, let's do a little exercise, you and me. Let's go through each division.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about the teams in each division.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about which team we thought won the draft out of their 4 division opponents.
Okay.
Well, let's start in the NFC East.
Uh-huh.
Scarily, Dallas won the draft. Micah Parsons is a massive upgrade.
That was huge.
The Giants obviously trade out of the first round, giving you your number 11 pick of Justin Fields. Washington, round 1, who did they take?
Linebacker out of
Davis out of Kentucky.
Yeah.
JOK was there. So they add to an already very good unit.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia traded up for Devontae Smith.
I mean, they did the same thing the year before to take Jalen Reagor.
He was terrible.
How did that pan out?
Philly's offense as a whole was terrible last year. Let's not grade Reagor on a bad rookie year with a bad offense.
Okay.
But I would have to say Dallas won that because their biggest deficiency was in the front 7. They add Micah Parsons. If you're going to go one player, that's the biggest name that was added to the Dallas Cowboys. Go to the other side, the AFC East. Did the Jets win the draft in that division?
I think they did. The tide is turning.
Yeah, all the bad teams are starting to make good decisions. Let's go to the AFC South. I'm going to say it. Urban won that draft.
Yeah, I mean,
you get your franchise quarterback, you get his favorite outlet receiver, you bring in a competent tight end who you know can play in your scheme. You know, I think they may have won that draft. The only team I think from the AFC South I could say they really took a shot at winning that draft, really the Colts bringing in Kwity Paye to play the edge on a very good defense.
That defense is already pretty stacked. So shout out to Joey because his boys just got a good pick.
And I'm sorry, the Giants did not trade out of the first round. They traded down to year number 20 and took Kadarius Toney, but he's not going to have the impact that I think Micah Parsons will have on Dallas's defense.
That's not going to do it for them.
They need line.
Yeah.
So NFC South, scarily enough, I think Tampa Bay not only brought everybody back, but they won the draft. Because very quietly, they drafted Brady's successor in Kyle Trask.
Yeah. I mean, the rich just got much richer.
And they took, I know Tone wanted Oweh at the end of the first round, but they ended up taking Joe Tryon, the edge guy, who I actually mocked to the Browns at 26 at one point in time. before I took Rousseau out of Miami in that mock. Listen, you're right. The rich got richer. They brought everybody back, and then they decided to get younger at the edge position because JPP is a free agent after this year. So I'm going to make this easy for you. The Chicago Bears won the NFC North in the draft. They have their franchise quarterback. They added to a piece of their team that they needed to add to in line help.
Mm-hmm.
They get a nice depth piece at running back. Minnesota in that first round took
the only other team that I can say that did considerably well was the Lions and take Penny Sewell.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Had you guys not taken Justin Fields, I would have given the draft win for the division to Detroit just by protecting Jared Goff, which I think the Rams were lacking a little bit his last couple of years there. Their offensive line play wasn't as good. Todd Gurley being a huge example of that. Mm-hmm. His production just falling off. So I'll give your nod to the Bears, and I will give the assist for the nod to the Bears to the Green Bay Packers.
Thank you.
The Cheeseheads send their thanks. AFC North. It's the Browns. The Browns may have won the whole thing as far as the draft goes. Now you just got to put it together on the field. But when you add a shutdown corner to Denzel Ward, when you add a lockdown linebacker, who, by the way, they have video of him running with Devontae Smith in that championship semifinal.
Unreal.
You add a stout defensive tackle. You add offensive tackle depth. You add the fastest dude in the draft to a team that, after Odell got hurt, badly needed someone who could take the top off the defense. Andrew Berry hit every need and didn't give up a lot of draft capital to trade up to 52 to get JOK.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think
the Steelers picking Najee Harris may have been the second stupidest thing of the night. Only trumped by Cincinnati.
I legitimately feel sorry for those boys. I can't wrap my head around it.
I can't either. Baltimore did make some good picks. Odafe Owe, the edge rusher out of Penn State, is going to be a nice piece to that defense. Where was the other pick that they had? And then, of course, the Rashad Bateman pick, another weapon for Lamar. You know what? Let's call that a flat-out tie with just what we're talking about here, because the Ravens also added to areas of need.
Because of what they did in the offseason, what they're doing right now in the offseason as well, too.
Adding Sammy Watkins, adding Zeitler, adding Villanueva. They have really done what the Browns have done. Tones just sent me a note. He was live with Buccateers. That's why he didn't jump on.
Oh, good.
So we'll call the AFC North a flat-footed tie with the biggest L coming from the AFC North as well. The AFC West is where it gets interesting because Kansas City didn't pick in the first round because of the trades they made to bolster their offensive line. So here's where we're going to have the longest conversation of the night in the last one, because the NFC West was easily won by the San Francisco 49ers, taking Trey Lance and leaving Jimmy Garoppolo there. So here's where the conversation goes. We dipped into this with your brother about an hour ago. Is Aaron Rodgers headed to Mile High?
I think so. There doesn't seem to be any type of mending of a relationship in Green Bay, and I never thought I would see the day, but it looks like the day is coming. He's not going to be in a Green Bay Packer uniform, and that's kudos to my brother-in-law, who is a diehard Bronco fan. So if they get him, I'm sure he will be jumping for joy.
I think so too. Like we've learned in the last few years, John Elway can take a generational veteran quarterback toward the end of his career and get to a couple Super Bowls. If they get him, they will have won the offseason by getting the best quarterback available and adding him to a team that wasn't bad last year. A lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball.
Realistically, their biggest hole was kind of at quarterback.
Drew Lock was a waste of time.
And I don't want to go that harsh, but I mean, if you look at it, their defense, you got Surtain in the first round, which is
That's what I'm talking about.
huge.
I mean, who else did they get?
Not to mention one of your boys in the third round, Baron Browning.
Yeah, and
that defense already in Denver is pretty stout. So
who did they take in round 2? Browning was round 3.
They took a running back out of North Carolina, I think I want to say.
No, that wasn't the Broncos. Michael Carter went to New Orleans, maybe?
Hold on. Now I got to look it up.
Oh, they did. They took Javonte Williams. You're right. I was because they had the 2. And I'm pretty sure they had a decent defensive line or offensive line.
7th round, 6th round, Seth Williams out of Auburn. I'm looking to pull it up.
The defensive back, right?
He's a wide receiver, but they took in the 7th. They took Kerry Vincent Jr.
Okay.
Out of LSU, cornerback.
They think they're DBU, but it's Ohio State. Where did Sean Wade land? Baltimore.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a flat-footed tie in the AFC North. So let's talk about the impact on the AFC if Aaron Rodgers goes to Denver. And again, this is all hyperbole if it doesn't happen. Kansas City is going to be tested in the division for the first time in a few years.
Mm-hmm. And that's what Rodgers, by all reports, that's what Rodgers says. He wants to play against Mahomes. He wants to have those 2 matchups and potentially, a playoff type of matchup going into Super Bowl time.
If they play twice a year for the next couple of years, are we talking about the last 2 of the greatest to do it having to go to war twice a year, possibly 3, depending on how the playoffs roll out? Because that would be fun.
It would be.
Because we've never seen that. We've never seen 2 generational talents like that play each other twice a year every year. Peyton didn't have that in the AFC when he was there. Brady only played Peyton outside of the playoffs once every couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Favre didn't play against anybody. Elway, what are you kidding me? Elway's biggest competition in the AFC, though, back then was Bernie Kosar.
Yeah, no, it would be must-see TV, to say the least. Like those are
I agree.
Primetime games each and every time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So one last topic, and then I want to wrap this up because you and I have been going almost an hour already. And I'm getting tired.
I feel you, man. I'm hurting over here too, so I got you.
Yeah, but it's 10 o'clock here.
Yeah.
So we wrapped up the draft. We talked about picks. We talked about our teams. We talked about things that made us scratch our heads. Cincinnati, Miami, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. Dig into your depths in the first round. Pull it up and have it in front of you real quick.
All right. Okay.
Non-quarterbacks.
Uh-huh.
So in this decision-making, no Wilson, no Lawrence, no Fields, no Mac Jones, no Trey Lance.
Okay.
Which one of those 27 players do you think will make the biggest impact on their team going into next year?
Oh, I had a name on the top of my head, and it kind of pains me to say this because I do not like their fan base and I do not like their organization, but I gotta say the Dallas Cowboys.
You're Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
Since you took mine,
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go somewhere else, and this one makes me hurt more than you could ever possibly fathom. But it's Kwity Paye. And you knew where I was going the minute
Yeah,
I
I
started
did.
talking like
I
that.
did. I was actually scrolling, and I was just looking for Michigan in the first round.
But listen, that was a very good defense last year.
That was, yeah.
With what they had at the second level, which got hurt because one of their better linebackers went to the Browns. But with what they had at the second level and in the defensive backfield, they needed an edge rusher. And Kwity Paye is a good edge rusher. I think he can step in and be a guy that disrupts an offense and one that bolsters a very good defense that really had Buffalo, by the stones to get to the second round. Didn't get it done because their defense couldn't hold Buffalo, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So, Alex, tell us where Row 7 can be found, including the place you didn't know it could be found.
Yes. So, Row 7 Podcast. Check me out on Twitter at Row 7 Podcast. Tweeting and commenting on all the latest and greatest in sports. Right now, we're obviously in full swing of baseball, so I'm all over baseball. But you can listen to my podcast on Spotify, Apple, Deezer, Stitcher, and now Amazon Podcasts, which I recently found out. But all my podcasts are actually on there. So thank you, Amazon, and thank you, Jeff Bezos.
So now all you got to do is say, Alexa, play Row 7.
Exactly.
And as I found out this morning, because I had my mom do it on the phone, Alexa, play Big Rican on Sports, and there it is. Big Rican can be found on Google, Spotify, Breaker, Anchor, Amazon, Radio Public, Facebook, Big Rican on Sports, Twitter at Big Rican on Sport, and of course on Periscope on Twitter and on YouTube where you'll see this video. So here's what I got coming up for Big Rican. I have to do a Mets breakdown of the first month and a half of the season. So we're going to take a week off, hopefully take 2 weeks off because little man will be home.
Hey, there we go. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. But then I'm going to get into a breakdown of what the Mets look like, and I'll do a little bit on Ohio State spring football, where 3 5-star recruits are going after the job that Justin Fields just left. So, Alex, thank you again. Listen, we got to get baseball going again. We got to get Tone away from Buccateers. I know he won a Super Bowl, but that's getting ridiculous.
I mean, it's riding high, and the fact that you got, like I said, they kept the band together and added in a draft. Wow, scary.
It is scary. So, thanks for watching, everybody. We will come at you again very soon. I will have the Mets breakdown done in the next couple of weeks. Alex, Tone, we've already set the date. Right around the All-Star break, we'll break down the first half of the Major League Baseball season, but we'll see each other between now and then.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the fact that we're like a month and change into the baseball season and so much has gone on, we've seen already 3 no-hitters. It's going to get better. It's going to get better.
We're going to talk about means next time we talk.
We're not going to go into it right now because it's a whole conversation.
Exactly.
Whole conversation.
Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy the weekend. And most importantly, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there that get to watch this, including mine, my wife, my mother-in-law, my sister.
Yes. Happy Mother's Day.
Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.